That's how we own it.
What's up, family? It's your girl, Tamika D, Mallory.
And it's your boy, Mysonne, the General.
And we are your hosts of Street Politicians, the place where the streets and politics meet. What's going on, family? We are in the last episode of season 7. So just interesting. And, really, I guess I'm proud of us that for 7 seasons, we've been going strong. Really trying to bring together all the things we care about, all the things happening in our society, and talk about it on each week. I don't know anyone who has a podcast or anybody who's written a book or anybody who works on projects knows that sitting still, focusing on your podcast or focusing on any type of project, like I said, it's a lot of work, especially with us, the way that we travel and having to be in hotels and the corner of the car and the lobby of the place, and just trying to make sure that we pump out this content and get you all information every week it is a task that we're up for, but nonetheless, it is a true task. And so for 7 seasons, we've been going strong, working alongside our family at Catscape Production, Janice and Anastasia and Cat Trigg herself. And then, of course, our team at Bond Brand Management, Latoya and Letitia, just so many people that it takes to pull this show together. And I was talking to another friend of ours, Monique Presley, who has her own show. And she was saying, and it's on her show, is on Instagram. It's not even like a show that has to go through a distribution network. Like, she's producing a show on Instagram. But she was talking about the editors and the people that she works closely with. And it is truly a lot of work. So for 7 seasons, many of y'all have been with us from the beginning. I know my sister, Sharon Mallory, watches every single episode. She's the critique lady, the cheerleader. She likes the content. She gets a lot of information and also shares a lot of stuff with us. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been sticking with us, the new, the old, the in-between, people who have sent us messages with all types of love. And of course, all the guests throughout the year. At one point, one of the reasons why I was concerned.
Throughout the years.
Right. I was concerned, and I was apprehensive because I know how difficult it is to track down celebrities and trying to get them booked to do your show. And if your show numbers are not like, whatever, you don't have the numbers of the Breakfast Club, it's not easy to get certain types of guests to see certain types of guests, certain types of personalities and influencers to see the value in going to your show versus going to someone else's show. But what I appreciate is that between you, my son, and of course, our whole team at Black Effect Network, of course, Charlemagne being, the key leader there, and of course, Dolly, a bunch of folks, but everybody said, stick exactly where you are, provide information. Don't worry about trying to get celebrities. Just make people will follow if you lead, if you give them the content. And you've been saying that since the beginning. And once I sort of got that monkey off my back of worrying about who was going to be the guest and who we are going to have on every week, and I just started to focus on the people who are our friends, who do good work. It seems like from there, we've been, really gelling and doing a good job.
Yeah, man, I told you build it and they'll come, man. So, shout out to everybody who's been with us. It's been a long journey. We just getting better and better. We're learning more. Like you said, we want to be more content-based instead of, guest-based. But we do want guests who can contribute something to the culture, contribute something to the conversations and the dialogues that we have. Because we know that, our perspectives are more, we come from a different lenses. Like, I come from a different lens than you. And sometimes we need people that come from different lenses than us and have more expertise and understanding on different topics. So this is, like you said, it's been a journey, but it's been a good journey. I enjoy giving the content. I enjoy getting feedback. I enjoy our dialogues. I enjoy just educating, because a lot of times we come, because we have to do this show, we educate ourselves on things that we probably normally would just see, but we know that we have to provide, you know, we have to provide content for our listeners and our fans and the people who support us. So we delve into these different topics and we listen and we hear different and we get perspectives that we probably normally wouldn't have got if we weren't doing this show. So this show has definitely been a blessing for me. I'm looking forward to where it can go. I know we have big ideas that we want to do moving forward. A lot of, you know, rearranging and adding and just building it up because we understand how important it is. You know, like especially in these times that we understand how important media is. You know, we've watched people control media, us being, you know, doing this work, being in the civil rights space and being in the social justice space, we understand how media works. And we've been victims of media. We've watched people paint pictures of us that you had me looking at. The media has had me looking at the screen like, who they talking about? That ain't Patricia's son they talking about. You know what I'm saying? So we understand that. And we want to bring some level of integrity, especially for our audience and people in our communities who normally wouldn't go to CNN or all of these spaces, and they don't care too much about the people on the blog site. So we want to be the conduit between all those things. We want to take information from, you know, the mainstream news. We want to take information from the blog sites that we know is pertinent, that our people need to know, and be able to convey messages and give them information that is needed to them. So, you know, I look forward to this journey. I appreciate you listening to me because I had to fight you to do this podcast, but you know, you came along and here we are.
I did. I came along. And I'm glad you said blog sites because we definitely need to make a distinction in what is media, right? So maybe you can call some stuff news, you could call some things, you know, information, but media is very different from blog sites. And we just need to people need to remember that. And sometimes you could get the real story from the blog site versus going to the news. Sometimes it's vice versa, but it's always better to check the resources of people who are actually engaged in a situation. So same thing with Jada Pinkett, you know, you look at both the news and the blog sites and all the things that they were saying. And then I started to get into the book and really listen to interviews. And I'm like, wow, they're like none of what is being said here in terms of this negative PR that was surrounding her, which we've talked about a million times, was accurate. And now I'm starting to see that. And this is why I love Jada so much, because I was speaking to her frequently leading up to the event that she came to that we produced in Atlanta. And, you know, she was not even talking about, she was like focused on her tour, focused on getting the things that she needs to do. And of course, taking care of her family. She's always dealing with the kids, dealing with something that's going on and doing her business. And she was not like, oh my God, what did they say? And what do you think? And blah, blah, blah. It was me more than anything online, fighting people, posting stuff, because that's what you need your friends to do, to show up for you so you can stay focused on what you have going on. But now that the tour is happening, more and more people are starting, I'm seeing it posted in her stories. I'm seeing other people writing it. I'm seeing people in my comments being like, yo, I read the book, or I'm into, you know, I went to an event, I heard her speak firsthand, or I read the book, and what folks is talking about, it's just not what it is. It's just not there. And so I realized, and you know, and I think that was her position, is that they've been through so many rounds of this, where either being misunderstood, just being a Black woman in general, being a Black family, being a family that has been sort of open in terms of, you know, information that they give out to the world. They know that it's going to be attacks. People are going to say things. You got to stay focused. And that's the thing, is staying focused despite all the noise that's going on around us. And that's not really easy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not really easy. Sometimes it's not really easy. I'm not going to lie. Like, sometimes it's hard for me to be like, stay focused. But anyway, speaking of staying focused, the attack on Gaza and the attack on the Palestinian people is still happening. You know, I was thinking as I was working on what we would talk about today, I was thinking that some of my Jewish brothers and sisters, especially the ones that are not actively engaged in the social justice movement, right? Because not all of anybody, it's not all Black people, not all Jewish people, not all white people, not all brown people. Some people is just your friend because you just met them in passing on the road. You know, you met them at an event. You may have met them in, you know, I am not only in movement spaces. There's other things I do. I meet people from the strip club to the freaking corporate offices, right? So you can meet all different types of people. And I've also met some Jewish people who I consider to be friends that are not in the movement every day, marching, protesting, or whatever. They do fundamentally believe in the values, because otherwise we wouldn't be friends at all. But in this last few weeks, they certainly have been very, very conflicted and angry and frustrated and concerned and all the things which they should be after an attack happened on their people. And so they have every right to feel that way. And I have sent condolences, had conversations. I've had some tough conversations. And I can feel where some people, while they don't want to see other people die either, they do feel a strong sense of a need for retribution. And I think that's like normal, right? Like it's normal that if you're in a family and one of your kids is killed, you might not want to see another child killed, but there is something inside of you that kind of says, if something happens to either the killer or their friend or family member or something, there's something deep inside of you that has a sense of an urge for retribution. You have to silence that. Like, it's where your morality speaks up. It's where, because I'm not going to sit here and say, although I did go to court for the men who killed my son's father, you know, against them, and wanted to see them held accountable. And over time, I stopped investing myself in that. We used to write letters to try to make sure they didn't get out. You know, my son was doing that when he was young, but then I was no longer invested in that the more that I've engaged in this work, because I understand the circumstances of everything at play are larger than a prison cell or a prison building can contain, hold, and or heal. It can't. It's just, it's so much bigger than that, you know? And so I had to let go of it. But there is a sense inside of me that went in that courtroom and also had conversations with other family members on the street where it feels like retribution is necessary. But then your humanity and your morality and all of that kicks in. And when it kicks in, you have to say to yourself a few questions, I think. And, you know, of course, you can say how you feel. I think first question is, how do we get here? You have to ask that. Like, you got to start with, was my child, if we talk about just Ray Ray and them in our community, we're not talking about Palestine for now or Israel. We're talking about just us. If my child is out terrorizing communities, doing wrong, or my brother, my sister, whomever, terrorizing people, selling drugs or scamming, robbing, killing, shooting, doing whatever to traumatize communities and other people. That's the foundation of how we got here. Now, I could go through, well, his father's dead, or his aunt did this, or he was molested, or I could go through, or, you know, he was poor, whatever, all those things true. But I still need to go at least to a foundational point and figure out, what about my child has been a part of the center of this issue? Foundational, right? So that's the first question. I think the next question we have to ask is, who is the leader that is now dealing with the retribution, right? Is the retribution being left to individuals who truly have the best concern for me, for my family, or the accountability? Whose accountability being left in the hands of? That's the question. Ooh, that's a good question, Tamika. Whose accountability being left in the hands of? Is it a person who cares about both? Is it a person who is fair and going to be equitable in how they choose to deal with it? Or is it a person that could care less about my child or the other child or the other family or the other side, or, you know, however we want to set it up, right? So you got to ask that. And then the third thing is, what is a reasonable response? And of course, an addendum to that is, when is enough enough? I think those are fair things. What you think?
I think they're all fair things. But what I want to say for me, right, is when we look at this situation in totality, you made a speech, right, and you said something, and it resonates right now. And when you said we learn violence from you, right, and if you want us to do better, then you got to do better. And the work that I do with Boycott Black Murder and Raising Kings and stopping violence and violence interrupted in these communities is when we tell these kids that retribution is not the answer, right? Mm-hmm. We tell these kids that we're gonna give Ray Ray and JoJo 100 years if he shoot the boy who shot his brother, mm-hmm. right? He gonna get 100 years. They're gonna call him a thug. They're gonna call him the worst person in the world. So for you to expect me to do this work as a man and go into these communities and talk to these kids and stop them from shooting up and retaliating against people that shot them and people who done that. And then America is saying that, you know what, we're going to fund someone to not only just shoot the people who shot them, but shoot anybody around them, whether it's kids, grandmothers, dogs, or anything. It's not realistic.
Not balanced.
Right? It's not balanced. It doesn't even make sense. I can't even have that conversation if I don't tell you that you are wrong, right? If we're not calling out our own government that tells us that, that violence in the communities is wrong, and they talk about how all of the shit that's going on, they point to Chicago and they say is a big problem, but we're willing to give billions and millions of dollars to other countries to fund their violence, right? Not even a fund, because they say that you have the right to defend yourself, right? Defense. What do they call defense, right? What are we calling defense? Are we calling defense that if you shoot me and I get away, I have the right to go and shoot and kill your whole family and the family of the family and the people that live next door, right? It's what are we actually saying? So I think for me it's a morality thing. It's an understanding, even if we're not even talking about the whole conflict and where it started and where even if we just ignore those things, we're just novice to this situation. We come seeing dead babies every day, right? Seeing schools bombed, seeing hospitals bombed. My morality kicks in, right? My morality kicks in and says to me, it's just not right. And I wouldn't want that. Even if one of my brothers died, I will not want to see the family and the whole family of the person who killed my brother die. I wouldn't want to see the kids' babies die, because I do not hold those kids responsible for that, right? So we have to speak realistically. We got to have real conversations, and I don't understand how. Like, I understand how. I understand the retribution. I understand that. I understand the human nature of retribution. I understand the human nature of self-defense. I under the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. I understand, but you can't have an eye for two bodies, right? You can't have an eye for a whole family, right? Because it's supposed to be an eye for us. So when we really sitting down, the morality of any person with humanitarian causes and understanding should look and say, "Sir, shit just ain't okay," And me, my morality just won't allow me to do that. It wouldn't allow me to do it for my own, So I have to tell people, you have to look deep. You got to look deep into yourself. If you look at a situation that, as was going on in Gaza, and you find that the thousands of babies that are dying are justified, right? That you find that blowing up schools and blowing up hospitals and pretty much
refugee camps.
And refugee camps. If you think that it is justified because of what happened on October 7th, which was a horrible situation, and there should be people held accountable for that. But if you think a whole race and a whole nation of people should be held accountable and wiped out for that situation, then that's something that you have to deal with personally. And I think the world is speaking up. I think when you have 300,000 people go to Washington, D.C., of all nationalities, Jewish, Black, white, Asian, every nationality. I watched the old lady on the internet yesterday who said that she had a sign and she said, "I'm a Jewish woman." And in fact, she said anti-Semitic to me is the fact that you will believe that all Jewish people, or even most Jewish people, support killing innocent Palestinian babies. That's anti-Semitic to her. She said, I will not stop. I will not take my sign off. I will not support Israel. I will not allow you to do this in the name of us. So I think it's a morality thing. It's not, because when we look at Black Lives Matter and we looked at George Floyd in the street, there was, you probably would find one person that was Black that probably like, they shouldn't be out there doing that. And it might have been Candace Owens. Candace Owens and Kanye might have been the only people that said some dumb shit. But for the most part, the rest of the world was like, nah, that shit ain't okay. That's against us. So what I'm trying to say is we understand the morality of something, that when we look at it, in totality, it's a moral issue. And even though it might have been a Black person that died, but the whole world looked and said, no, this shit is not okay. And most Black people, 99% of Black people said it wasn't okay. So when you look and see that even the Jewish people were split, and I think more, there probably are more, I can't actually say, but I think there are more Jewish people that say, nah, we understand, and we definitely want Hamas to, to be caught and deal with the consequences of what they did, but we're not okay with watching innocent babies die.
Well, when you say more, what we would say is more than before. Like, maybe not in terms of the full community. We can't determine the numbers of whether it's more Jewish people, but we know it's more people in the street today that are Jewish, who are standing up for Palestinian rights and just for peace and to stop the attack. There are more people than it has been in the past. And so certainly, absolutely, hands down, unequivocally, we know there must be a ceasefire. That's the basic. Ceasefire is the basic thing that this administration could call for at this time. America is completely out of its mind to stand by. And I never thought about what you said, that we live in a country that if a police officer wrongfully, and everybody knows it, kills an innocent person, that this country tells us the answer is go to court, go through a process. Even 9/11, they have admitted 9/11, because of the response to 9/11, America has admitted that they made mistakes. They went too far in some places. They did things that were not right from a humanitarian perspective. Right? They admitted that because it's been on the news. They've been talking about it. But nonetheless, they will tell us when we are killed and innocent people die and people see a George Floyd and all of that, which is traumatizing, they say there's a process, there has to be accountability, there's all this and that. And a lot of times most times that process doesn't work for us. They never say that Black people have the right to defend itself or ourselves.
Or
they never say that.
They
never say that. But yet we are funding another country, another nation, or whatever they're called, another state, there you go, another state, murdering people in the name of it having the right to defend itself, when America has never held Israel accountable for the atrocities that happened before October 7th. So it's hypocritical. So that's why I say to my Jewish brothers and sisters, because they write me, some of them come into my comments, my DMs, and they say, why aren't people saying enough or standing up for us as well? And I feel like the way that and I said this to one of my sisters who I love dearly, dearly, she's a friend, a sister to me. And I said to her, this is something that you have to turn around and go back to looking at this government that is governing Israel, because they are not helping your cause. They are not helping your cause. In fact, what they are doing is hardening people. And President Obama talked about that in the letter that he wrote, that people globally will be hardened against Israel for the actions that they are taking if it is not managed properly. Because that is what you see. You see people who are saying, hold up, I know October 7th was horrific. I know October 7th was terrible and it shouldn't have happened. I know that. But I need to go to October 1st of 2010 and 2011 and let's go to the October 7th of the past. Where was America at the table holding Israel accountable for its atrocities against the Palestinian people? And when you don't have that, when you don't have a balance of that, and my friend, the same woman I'm talking about, she said to me, but I was out there. I've stood against Israel for the occupation in Palestine and all of that. I've stood against that. You are one person. And it is great that you've done that. You are seen as an ally, I'm sure, to the Palestinian community and even to us as Black people, because this is a woman who's in both, in all the spaces. But the problem is that there is not enough of the uprising of the people, an uprising of the people. In fact, even people who are in the streets today have decided that they are willing to go balls to the walls. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but on here, but they're willing to go hard, lose their jobs. People are losing ACLU. The ACLU currently has a legal strategy to address people who are losing their jobs and people who are, being, what's the word? When you are being reprimanded at schools and in other spaces because they choose to stand for Palestine. So what has happened in the past is that the world should have stood up when the people of Israel voted against Netanyahu, and he still somehow found himself back in a position of power. The people should have rose up in the same numbers that we are seeing around the world today. And the people, the members of the Jewish community should have led that fight to remove him from office even if it had to be forcefully. And the reason why people didn't do it is because to criticize the state of Israel means that you will be labeled anti-Semitic. And being labeled anti-Semitic is not something that most people are willing to do. They are not willing to allow themselves to be labeled in that way because they see what that means for you economically. They see what it means for you educationally, for your family. People can't get insurance for their households. People can't go and speak in schools and whatever else just because they have been labeled. And if you're talking about the state of Israel, they are being labeled that wrongfully. And so, therefore, there wasn't enough movement to address Netanyahu and to get that administration out of power. And as a result of that, you have something like October 7th happen and maybe other incidents. That doesn't mean it's justifiable. It means that there's a reason why this is happening. And what we need to do is the same way people are standing up for Palestine. Everybody, including the freaking federal government of the United States of America, needs to be saying Netanyahu and his regime, they gotta go. They have to go. And we need somebody in position there in Israel who sees the Palestinian people and understands that they have a right to thrive. They have a right to their freedom. They have a right to take their proper position in their communities. I mean, this is not a complex conversation. I'm with Ta-Nehisi Coates. Ta-Nehisi Coates said, I went there thinking it was going to be complicated. And it wasn't complicated at all. So that's what I have to say on that. And since we're talking about what the United States government should do, we should go on to our next topic, which is David Axelrod. Now, by the way, I have some issues with David Axelrod, especially during the BLM protests of 2020. Axelrod said some really, really not so cool, dangerous, and disrespectful things about the protests, about the protesters. He's never given me the impression that he cares even the least bit about what is happening with people who are abused and with people who are brutalized by the state of America, the United States of America, right? He's never given me that impression. But he's in the game of politics. So this is not even about whether or not he cares about our issues. This is our global position, and of course, as a nation. And he said that Joe Biden needs to find somebody else to run, let somebody else run for president, and he should step aside. And so The reason why Axelrod is important is because he has been seen as a kingmaker. Now, it's important to note, though, that I've read several times that he didn't think Obama should run either. So, there's that. But nonetheless, so that doesn't mean he's always right. But nonetheless, he is a kingmaker. And I think that Axelrod, he's not all, I'm sure he's a consultant and he's doing a lot of things, but I don't see him actively at the forefront of the, political dynamics in America. It's not, and I'm sure he's in the background. I'm just saying, I don't see him all the time. But I'm sure from the background, he's reading the tea leaves, right? He's reading the room and he sees what's happening. And I don't think that this all started, my son, with this attack against the Palestinian people or the attack against the Jewish people. I don't think that's where this started. I think people were reading this prior to October 2023. And they already knew there was a problem. And now this attack and what we're seeing and the lack of a call for a ceasefire has just exacerbated what we already knew, which was that Joe Biden was already on thin ice. And now he's on, I don't even know, the ice is like almost melted.
Yeah, he's riding on water at this point. And I think for me, it's important to note, just for me, when the election came for Joe Biden, I was never a Joe Biden fan, right? I just didn't believe that Trump had any presidential bone in his body. I thought the way that he was running the White House was like a mobster. And I said to myself, this is crazy, and I said to myself, even though I'm not a Joe Biden fan, I believe there are enough people in his cabinet and surrounding him, and he has influence. Like sometimes when you're not that good at something and you hire good people. And I felt that Joe Biden had hired people who were way smarter than him, that I knew personally that were way smarter than him, that were in positions that were going to do things for, our communities and for this country that was beneficial. And to this point, I would believe that has happened in some regard. But there are a lot of different places within his government that he has situated
Judges is one big.
It's a very big situation, and that's why we're able to get some level of justice for Breonna Taylor at this point, as we, are headed out to this trial in a minute. But so there are things they've done, and
actually, no, because the judge in this case is a Trump appointee.
Well, I'm not talking about the judge in this. Okay, but I'm talking about in the Department of Justice.
That's true. Right. They're not judges. I'm just trying to make sure they're not judges, but it is true that the appointment of the Civil Rights Division Assistant Attorney General being Kristen Clark is exactly why many of the cases and other things that we see happening are happening in the federal government.
Exactly. So, and when we look at those situations, they are very important to what we're doing. And we look into certain things in the communities. I've seen how this administration has embraced, violence interrupters and trying to fund, the work in our communities to stop that from happening. So there are a lot of things that I've seen that are positive, but once again, when you look at Joe Biden's age, you look at his history that a lot of people will never overlook. They'll never look past the crime bill. They'll never look past the fact that he's up in age, and it's just certain things that plague him. Right. So I never was really a big Joe Biden fan, but I understood what we had to do. But I always knew that even when we got Joe Biden in office, that the day after he got in office, we as a people, as a collective, were supposed to be building up the next candidate and building up the qualifications and the things we needed that we wanted to see from the government in totality. Because I never felt that either one of these administrations were even possible, even though, once again, I will say that Joe Biden has done a lot and the people don't want to give him credit for it. But I knew that it was going to be hard for him to win again. But I will say, when this situation happened and the way that he's pretty much cowtailed, and I would say coward, Netanyahu is pretty much punking Joe Biden. He's taking his money and telling you, shut up, I'm going to do what I want to do. And y'all mind your business. Just give me the money and get out the way. and it doesn't show leadership, it doesn't show strength. When your whole country is saying that they're against something and you still doing it, and not only you doing it in agree, you even saying, well, maybe you're right, and the person is telling you, fuck you, that's not presidential to
It's
me.
a fact.
That's not I'm not even gonna say that, but I would say something else. But anyway, it's not presidential to me. And I think that when people look and see leadership is not actually leading, they don't have any level of power, they don't have a backbone, then it's hard for people to vote for that. And I know, and I've been very vocal in saying that there's a snowball's chance in hell of me per se voting for Joe Biden. Snowball. Mm-hmm. This is just not going to happen, because you don't represent the moral fiber of what it is that I represent as a man. And unless something changes drastically over the next year, it's just not going to happen for me. And I think there's a lot of people who made that decision. And like you said, unless something happens, we still have a year to go. But unless it happens, this right here, watching babies die and watching you fund it, watching you constantly stand down on it and just double down on the fact that we support them and they have the right to defend themselves. We stand with this. We'll continue, and we won't say what they can do, and we're not going to tell them what to do. And then you try to ask them to do something. They're telling you, shut the fuck up. I'm going to do what I want to do. That's not presidential for me. I can't of sound mind and a good moral compass be able to say that I support somebody like that.
Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000% that there are going to be a lot of people who feel that way. Me personally, I haven't made a determination or a decision on what I will do yet. I know that I'm not mad at one person who says that they will not vote for Joe Biden. I see people writing no ceasefire, no vote. I can tell you that emotionally, that definitely resonates with how I feel. To hear the president saying that, to see that they are trying to get $100+ billion to Israel and Ukraine, and then have said, which is the most hypocritical shit ever, because they're getting $1 billion to Israel and Ukraine for opposite reasons. Ukraine, they claim they're supporting them because Russia's trying to take their land, but then they're going to support Israel in taking the Palestinian land. It just doesn't make sense. It's like, y'all think we stupid. Like, we can't read and pay attention and understand history and facts, but whatever. Cool. Ultimately, just say it's the American interest. You doing whatever interests you, but not what is actually morally correct. So put that to the side. And so I feel it, but I'm also my understanding of what will happen to Black people under a Trump presidency, and looking at the candidates that they have lined up on the Republican side, and knowing the type of work that I would have to do, the type of work that we all, not just you and me, but we will have to do, the fights that we will be up against when Trump becomes president. Oh yeah, you will be working. When Trump becomes president and they decide to lock up more young Black men, when they decide that they are going to arrest protesters and organizers, because if you remember, it was under William Barr, who was the attorney general, he was Trump's attorney general, that named many of us Black identity extremists, which meant that he put us in a terrorist category for the fact that we would dare to protest against police brutality. It was under the Trump presidency that they undid all of the consent decrees that the Obama administration put forward to try to work on police issues in different cities around the country. It was under the Trump presidency that the Supreme Court became a conservative court that has now been doing things like taking women's rights away, the right to choose in terms of abortion, looking at what we found out, which we didn't even know was there until we started to do more research, that they're making it harder for somebody to even say that their lawyer was ineffective counsel on their cases. They don't even want to hear those type of cases. So if we go down the list of the things that happened under the Trump presidency. And by the way, attacks by white supremacists became more acceptable and actually praised, because the president stood before the nation, Donald Trump, and said, you know, rough them up to the police. He said, he talked about Kaepernick and like Kaepernick was a dog. He talked about other Black athletes who dared to stand up to this government and said things that's unthinkable about them, right? He put basically our lives in danger. And so we know what the Trump presidency looked like. And if he is to become president again, they are going to go from the window to the wall. They're going to be worse than they were before, because now, one, it basically would be a time when he's gotten even more hardened. And if he wins, it will be after he has been through so much with the courts and everything, with them trying to hold him accountable. The war and the wrath of how he will enter his presidency is something that we probably have not seen in maybe ever, but certainly not since a time when we were actually enslaved. And so I understand that. And I'm not going to sit here no matter what, and trust me, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm disgusted. The idea that I would ever have to go and vote for Joe Biden again makes me want to throw up. And by the way, I felt that way before he became president. So that's that. But I feel even worse. But I'm very clear that we don't necessarily know what it is that we're asking for. I know that I didn't go to campaign for and to get Biden elected just because by the way, all of that bullshit, oh, you work for the Democrats. Democrats don't give me shit. They never had. And by the way, our records, it's open to the public, right? So if Democrats were somehow paying me, or people, and not to mention, most of the people that I work closely with that have actual money that they are invested in me in that type of way, most of them have more conservative views than you think. Many of them I've never really asked. But if I started asking, they might have actually voted for Trump, to be clear. But we don't talk about it because they also support the fact that Black people should not be killed and indiscriminately treated in this nation. So that's kind of where our threshold ends, because you don't want to get too far into the politics. I used to live in the house with a man who said to me many times, I want to see prisons look like shitholes where it's disgusting, where it's rats in the bed, it's everything terrible. So people don't want to go there, right? And I had to fight and argue with him many times about people who are wrongfully convicted and, have those conversations. And in many ways, I was able to move him on some of those issues. But I'm just saying that a lot of people who have a lot of resources and money, they're not always so liberal in their ideas. So let's just be clear. But the Democratic Party does not give me shit. In fact, most times I'm not invited. They don't really like me. I'm too radical. I've been on Palestine. You and I have been on Palestine before before Joe Biden even became president. And not only that, the fact that I was unwilling to denounce Minister Farrakhan and even use any type of language that was forced upon me, or what they were trying to force upon me to speak about him, that in and of itself created a label for me and put me in jeopardy and took away my resources and ruined relationships that I had. So I've never been a darling of the Democratic Party. Maybe I kind of was back when Obama was president, because we had a really good relationship with the administration. But that has not been the case for many years. In fact, many of them, including Valerie Jarrett, spoke out against me from national platforms because of what was happening with us in the Women's March and all the dynamics there. So with that being said, I'm not standing in this position because I win or gain anything. I'm standing in this position because I understand what it looks like for my son and my granddaughter if we are in a situation where Donald Trump becomes president. And so I don't know yet. I don't know. I do think, though, I'm with Axelrod, somebody who I don't agree with on issues of our lives, but I'm with Axelrod that they need a different candidate to run for president. I don't know if that's realistic, but I believe that.
I hear everything you're saying. I think for me, I've survived so many different presidents, and the shit never really changed for me. Even when I don't care what's going on, when I really start thinking about it, the conditions of our communities don't really change. They haven't really changed much. If I go to Pookie right now and said Joe Biden's been in the office, and they look at me and be like, I don't know what the fuck Joe Biden. They actually think it's been better when Trump was there. So when we having real conversations, for me, at this point, it's a moral thing for me. It's a moral issue for me. If I can't look at you as a man, if I don't believe that you even represent the country as a man that I would as a man, even you don't even have the backbone to say some shit is wrong as a man, and you let another person run his country the way he wants to, 10 toes down, and say, fuck what you think. My people and us over here is doing this, and we don't give a fuck what you do. Just give us your money. I can't see me ever voting for that. I just can't see me ever making a decision again to saying, you know what, is it lesser than two? No, the shit is just all fucked up. And until I start seeing candidates that I can put because I went through a bunch of shit for telling people not to vote for Trump, and I don't really give a fuck. And I went through it. But when shit like this morally comes down, and I got to look at my kids and see damn kids are dying, and the man to sit there and perpetuate and continue to support that and stand up every day and say he's gonna stand next to that, it's like, nah, that shit ain't for me. So we all have our own battles. We all have our own, lines that we draw in the sand, and what we all stand for is different. And I just don't see where at this point, where me and a Joe Biden administration have an understanding, because I understand that if you can be pushed to do this, right? If what we do it, what we're doing as a country at this point, right, is when you have all of the countries say, yo, this shit is a humanitarian crisis. This shit is against humanitarian. These are war crimes. And the whole world is saying that, and you standing with one person that I know is an evil individual, the man is evil, like everything about him, you stand next to that, I know that the world is looking at us. I know that we might be the next target. I know that people look at leadership. When you have a leadership understanding of what leadership is, from whatever level it is, you understand that once people start diminishing your leadership and they don't see you strong, they get rid of you, right? And that's what we've dominated as Americans. We have dominated this world, and countries have feared us for so long. But when you start seeing weak leadership, and you start seeing other countries aligning, and they're like, damn, first of all, the leadership, but now these people are not even morally sound. And then you start hearing the country inside say that they're not even with you. Then the foundation of what it is that we're supposed to represent is gone. So if we put that type of individual back into office, fuck World War III, and we're gonna be the main target, right? Because no other nation is with us. That's what the problem is. We with the nigga who is the worst person in the world, and every other nation of good moral standard is saying we can't stand by that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you get so closed in something that you don't see from outside. But I understand, like they said before, the battle, the same way that those people, countries and they battlefields look, that's how America's gonna look. They not going to no motherfucking desert land and shooting. No, they bombing the main towns. Our kids are gonna be dying the same way other people's kids die. It's no longer that shit we talking about. So for me, it's way bigger than a couple of laws that somebody might make that we got to pay a couple dollars. No, it's understanding that America is being looked at as tyrants, and we got a president is standing next to somebody that's not doing God's work at all. That is completely complicit in doing evil, and I don't want to be a part of that.
You know what? And that's why I said, what I have said to a number of my friends who have contacted me, I said it on Roland Martin's show the other day, it's not me or those of us who are angry, right? And those of us who are frustrated, and those of us who are in many ways saying, I will not support this president and vice president as they stand by and support an atrocity and a human rights violation and war crimes. Don't talk to us, talk to them. Go talk to President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris and let them know that you are losing people that you need and organizers. Because one thing I will tell you is that Average, not average, they're not average, they're much above average. Everyday citizens, everyday people who got 50 million things going on in their life, less of them are engaged to the point where in a year they're still going to be reminded of this and make a decision based upon it. If we had to vote, if this election day that is tomorrow, November 7th, that we're sitting in front of here in Kentucky, if tomorrow you were voting for the president of the United States, I don't think Joe Biden will win because many people are paying attention. But 1 year away, the everyday citizen, especially after they've heard Trump speak or whomever becomes the Republican candidate, especially after the churches and others are saying, hey, we got to go with the Democrat and all of that, I don't know that they will vote against Joe Biden, or that they will, and many of them may stay home, but I don't know that they'll vote against Joe Biden. The group of us who are righteously indignant, those who are angry, those who are frustrated, that pool is much smaller than we think, much smaller, right? Even though it's millions, but it's still not everybody, right? And the organizers within that group who actually get out the vote is smaller, but that's their problem. Their problem is that there are a number of people who organize the vote with or without the support of the Democratic Party. They don't have to be aligned in any way, but they do it because of the interests of their community. And those are the people who are very aware and who are very angry and who are very much saying, I refuse to vote for Joe Biden. And I also will not go out and campaign for the Democratic ticket at the top. But there are, of course, a bunch of elections, statewide elections, that will also be on the ballot in 2024 that we will have to focus on. So with that being said, I think that in a place like Kentucky, or not so much in a place like Kentucky, just in general, overall, you will have some issues, but I'm not sure that it will be to the degree that he won't win. I don't know. I do not know. I know you cannot win Detroit or Michigan, excuse me, you cannot win Michigan. And I believe Minnesota is similar without the Muslim vote. And one thing about it is they're not going to forget. They're not like Black people. They are not going to forget at all about what happened here. So with
the problem is what you're not understanding is this. The Muslim vote is just not Arabs, right? Muslim has a big population. Like if you look at Philadelphia, most of the Black people in Philadelphia is Muslim.
Yeah,
right?
but I'm not. But the thing is, okay, go ahead.
So that's what I need you to understand. So when you say the Muslim vote, there are certain states within New York, like Camden,
within New York.
I mean, within United States
that have area.
That, and it's not just Arab Muslim. They have big Muslim populations. Like a lot of my Black Muslim friends are hitting me every day. Like they hit me every day, and they so against this administration that it's a lot. It's a lot.
But let me just say, because we need to be very clear, so when we're educating our audience, we all learn at the same time. Number one, there's only a few battleground states in New Jersey, and New York ain't two of them. So it really doesn't matter who we vote for, because our vote doesn't 100% count towards who wins the presidency. It might be the popular vote, but the battleground states are certain places like, again, Michigan, which you have to be able to win. And the majority of the Muslim population are Arab in those particular places, right? When you start talking about Black people who are Muslims, some of them don't vote at all anyway, right? Especially in the Nation of Islam and other places like that. Voting for presidents and all of that is something that, not to say they're against it, because many of them do, but there are many who don't. They abstain and they deal with local elections and local politics in their community. So that is already sort of accounted for. But specifically in Michigan, a place like Michigan, the Arab Muslim community is necessary in order to move the vote in those places. When you think about somewhere like Georgia, where Stacey Abrams lost, when you look at the numbers, the Arab Muslim community was low on the list, and they were also low on the campaign's priority. And so it would show you where if they would have picked up a bit in that community, they would have been able to possibly win the election. So I'm saying that certain places, that community cannot be discounted. And then in other battleground states like South Carolina, you're going to have a lot of Black people who they're going to be a lot of Black people who are not Muslim, whatever. They're just Christian Black folks or unidentified religiously Black folks who go to venues and deal with spaces where they will be listening to or learning more about the Republican Party's policies, and they're not going to want a Donald Trump presidency. That is not a thing that is going to change. A lot of those people are not going to want a Donald Trump presidency. So with that being said, it remains to be seen. I'm not arguing because I understand exactly where you are. I saw what Philip Agnew wrote. I see Tiffany Lofton. I see Sean King. And I respect 100% that sentiment that is out there. I respect it. All I'm suggesting, though, I'm just suggesting that it's going to be much more than just some people are upset about this thing, and it's going to be a whole picture. And there are going to be people who look at police brutality and say, we ain't really moved the damn bit at all. And then those people will fall off, probably, right? But when you have a Donald Trump saying the police is doing a great job, and he's like Daniel Cameron saying, I'm going to give them more power, more money, more whatever, then you got some people saying, well, I don't know. So we'll see how it all works out in the end. But I'm just saying I reserve the right to make my decision. But I also I'm very invested in, I hear people saying it's no way that there can be another candidate. I don't know about that. And I want the smart people who are smarter than me and who are more politically engaged and more politically astute to help us figure out, is it possible to get somebody else to run? Because I'm sick and tired of this administration, completely sick of it, throw it away. I don't want it. But I also haven't made a final decision about where I stand. Now, let me just go to my thought of the day real quick because we got to hurry up and get to court. You know, the FBI calls me again yesterday, more death threats, especially with this trial going on and then the election happening. So there's so much going on. And of course, they're targeting a Black woman, which is me, and they want me dead because I have the audacity to stand up on my 2 feet, straighten my back, and keep on showing up in Kentucky. And I was just thinking to myself, you know, even with all of that, the negative attention that comes our way from people who we work with that don't like us, to people who we don't like, who don't work with that don't like us, to Tamika's too this, Tamika's too that, Tamika looks like this, Tamika looks like this, Tamika ain't this, Tamika's not smart enough, she's not this, she ain't got that, da, 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 why she got this, blah, blah, blah. Then all the way to the fact that people actually threaten my life on a regular basis. With these things, still I rise. And I'm just trying to figure out for other people that don't have to go through hardly any of that. You're not in the public eye. You don't have death threats coming at you. You're not facing any particular scrutiny. Maybe it's that you just don't want it. Like, you don't want to put yourself in that position. Like, what makes people so adverse to actually taking a stand? I'm not even talking about Israel Palestine. That's too high you got to go too high to deal with that, because you can really get yourself in the crossfire with that. But I'm saying in your local community, I'm just talking about on your block, being like, you know what, these kids is out here killing each other, or we don't have a good grocery store that will feed these people fresh produce and whatnot. I live here, I'm going to do something. I'm going to show up at a community meeting, or I'm going to go to a precinct council meeting, or I'm going to maybe run for office, so I'm going to do a food pantry. What the hell? Like, you don't even have the level of scrutiny that I deal with every day, and yet you want to do nothing. But you will sit around on the internet and critique what somebody else is doing. I just find that to be so cowardly. You know, I do. And I know people will say, well, everybody's not like you, and that's fine. I'm not asking you to be like me, but what is like you? That's the question, is what is like you? Forget about being like me. What is like you? If you don't see the need to say something in your own community about issues that impact you, but you got the nerve to come to my page or to tell me somewhere that I really don't like the way you move. Well, you move.
It's very crazy, and you know what's crazy, because that kind of goes into what my I don't get it was, and it's pretty much is we pretty much asking the same shit and saying the same thing back and forth, because when we look at so many issues that go on, I don't give a fuck what I put up. People say we got bigger fish to fry. It's bigger things to fry. Why black people don't need to be focusing on that. Black people don't need to focus on that. Black people need to focus on everything. And I don't understand why people don't realize that. I don't understand how somebody could look and say, okay, the shit that's going on in Gaza, like this shit is this like we were looking at these are brown people, these are people that, these are oppressed people. Like why we should, I can understand that shit. Like what's to stop somebody from here if we just quiet about that? What's to stop from, one day Israel and Netanyahu say, fuck, we tired of Joe Biden. We tired of America. We not allies with them no more. We're gonna join, we're gonna be allies with somebody else. And you know what? The first people we're gonna go over there to make sure, because we know the black people we gonna get rid of them. We're gonna get rid of the black people because those are the people that we know gonna fight. They've been oppressed. We gotta make sure that they don't do shit, right? Because those the talk. Like, what's to stop that from happening? Right? So I don't understand why people don't see that shit as a real possibility of what's going on here. Right?
Well, they're gonna say you trying to scare people.
I'm not trying. It's not about scaring. I'm just saying, the thing for me is that why do we put past shit in our communities like it ain't happened? We've been enslaved before. They've oppressed us before, right? So why do you think that it's above happening again? Why you think of other European nations, if they decide to do some shit, don't realize that the biggest threat to their regime would be black people, because we the people that say, fuck you white people been doing this shit to us for years and we ain't gonna stand for it. Why wouldn't you understand that you would neutralize the biggest threat to anything? They do that inside this country right now. They give us a bunch of bullshit. They put all the drugs, the guns, and everything in our community to keep us neutralized. They keep us in prison. They make sure that we don't have opportunities. All of the shit. We still impressed. We living in a fucking damn near open air prison inside the projects because they surround us with fucking nothing but police, act all within. They let us kill each other within the projects, and then they send you to jail or they put you in the morgue. So when we keep saying that that's not our issue and this ain't our issue, I don't understand why we don't realize that every fucking issue that has to do with anybody that's oppressed is a black person's issue. I don't understand where we get that from. The shit that's going on in Sudan, the shit that's going on in Congo, all of that shit is coincide with the shit that's going on in Palestine. So we shouldn't say, we need to speak about that and not that. No, we need to speak about all that shit is one, because now you got allies, right? You don't separate your issues that are the same shit for other people who are dealing with the issues that you're dealing with. You combine those shit. You bring them shits as one. You say, look, we ain't dealing with all of us oppressed people would say, fuck that. We ain't with it. And we're not gonna let y'all keep oppressing us. Now you want to separate now. Let them people do that. The Joe such and such in the store, he Palestinian. I don't like the way he talked to me. So fuck all of them. And this person.
They don't even know if they're Palestinian. That's a lie.
Shit that they keep
say
running with.
they don't even know
the
that.
ox in the store.
They don't
give a fuck about me. I ain't fighting for the. They don't care about us. They just we all just the same way that we experience racism, they experience racism. We disrespect.
And not only that, black people. Because when we was thrown off of that plane in American Airlines flight, it was a black woman that started that. It was a black woman and her nasty ass attitude that started that situation. So let's just be clear that I've been in stores and other places where black people don't treat me right. I've been in clubs where black men who are supposed to be doing security are more physical and nasty and threatening towards black women than a lot of environments. So don't tell me that I get it. Other communities absolutely treat black people like we're at the bottom, right? And they don't have no respect for us. But a lot of that has to do with white supremacy, because what white supremacy teaches is that black is the least. And so everybody piles on us. And I know that. I agree. I'm not disagreeing. But I know one thing. I'm like and we closing the show on this note. And you could, of course, if you have something else to say, but this is it. I'm like the people that don't see color, right? People be like, I don't see color. And then we know that that's in and of itself a racist statement when white people say, I don't see color. Because if you don't see color, then you don't see me. But I bet you see color when you see that white privilege that you get. But nonetheless, I don't see color. I don't see race. Well, guess what? That's how I feel about kids. I don't see color when I see kids. If I see kids being blown to bits anywhere in this world, I don't see color. I see kids. So I don't think it's right if it happens to Jewish kids. I don't think it's right if it happens to Black kids, Latino kids, and I don't think it's right when it happens to Palestinian children. And guess what? At this point, I feel that 5,000 Palestinian children, as of the point that we are taping this podcast, is out of touch, overboard. It's a war crime. It is wrong. And no, we will not just sit by and stand and stay quiet. No, because by the way, 5,000 needs to be added to the numbers of the many years, 75 years that this has been going on, where the Palestinian people have not been free on their own land. And so when you put I'll say, and because it is not just happening, it has not just happened to Palestinian children, but there's also the Israeli children or the Jewish children that need to be included in that number. That's why we're calling for a ceasefire, because we want every single person, everybody, to live.
And with that said, I definitely agree with that, man. You know, what I will say is shout out to a lot of people. There are a lot of people who've been standing up, man. Shout out to Macklemore. I seen him speaking out. You know, there's a lot of artists. John Legend. You know, if you know names, just saying, because
Kenny Stills,
Kenny Stills, shout out to my brother Amanda Seals. Like, shout out to everybody. You know, Sean
and
King,
shout out to Sean King.
Sean King is who's been steadfast in just giving you the information, and a lot of those videos and pictures are brutal. And a lot of people are like, why would you post that? And I'm like, why wouldn't we? Because what happens is you get complicit with not understanding something, and when you don't see certain things and you don't realize the seriousness of what's going on, then you able to just go back, because they say ignorance is bliss. And the fact that he does not allow you to be ignorant, right? If you follow him, you are going to be aware of exactly what's going on every day in that situation. And if it doesn't do something to your heart to say, nah, kids are not supposed to be dying like this, you know, then I don't know what to tell you. So I want to salute everyone, because I know it's very hard. You know, a lot of people are putting a lot on the line to be able to speak up against, you know, the genocide that's going on inside of Palestine. And a lot of people don't like to hear that word, but to me, that's exactly what it is. And I'm not going to say it isn't, because when one group of people is being targeted and taken out in the level that these people are being taken out, is genocide. So I admire and I respect everyone, you know, who's able to speak up in this moment, because it is not the status quo to do. You know, so I want to say I appreciate y'all, man, and we're gonna continue to fight, man. Ceasefire, man. Free Palestine, man. You know, I say all the time, if they come for them in the day, then they'll come for us at night, man. So I'm not gonna always be right. Tamika D. Mallory's not gonna always be wrong, but we will both always, and I mean always, be authentic.
Peace.
Listen to Street Politicians on the Black Effect Network on iHeartRadio.
And catch us every single Wednesday for the video version of Street Politicians on iWomen.tv.